Have you ever considered how easily your life could change in an instant due to a stranger's actions? In today's video, we dive into the gripping story of Aunt Lee, a beloved grandmother whose peaceful retirement takes a shocking turn when an unexpected visitor shatters her tranquility. As we unravel her harrowing experience, you'll discover the critical lessons she learned about safety and vigilance. You'll witness how a simple act of kindness can lead to unforeseen dangers, and how Aunt Lee courageously faced a terrifying situation that many of us might encounter. Stay with us until the end to learn valuable insights on protecting yourself and your loved ones from potential threats, as well as practical safety tips that could make a world of difference in your daily life. This isn't just Aunt Lee's story, it's a wake-up call for all of us. Don't miss it. If you are not subscribed, I recommend subscribing and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support means a lot to me, and if you enjoyed this video, you can help me continue spreading the valuable lessons by liking and sharing it. If you like the topic of this video, please comment 1. If you don't, please comment 0 to let me know how I can improve and make better videos for you. Now, let's begin. In the golden afternoon light, Aunt Lee sits in her rocking chair on the balcony, the gentle sway matching the rhythm of her thoughts. A well-loved book rests in her hands, a familiar escape into a world that feels both foreign and comforting. The warm sunlight wraps around her like a comforting embrace, casting a peaceful glow over her as she loses herself on each page. Occasionally she pauses, a soft smile gracing her lips as she ponders a thought or sentiment from the story. She then looks up, eyes sweeping over her carefully tended flowers and plants that line the balcony, each bloom and leaf radiating life and vitality. The sight fills her with a sense of gratitude and contentment, a reminder of the beauty she's nurtured over the years. Later in the day, Aunt Lee makes her way to the community's senior activity center, a lively haven where joy and camaraderie fill the air. The place bustles with laughter, playful banter, and the tapping sounds of chess pieces and cards. She greets her friends with a warm smile before joining a chess group, savoring each thoughtful move, every friendly challenge, and the comforting familiarity of her companions. Here, among friends who share her passions, she finds a sense of belonging and joy that fills her heart to the brim. As evening settles, the sky becomes a canvas of brilliant orange and red hues, painting the horizon in breathtaking colors. Aunt Lee strolls through the square with her old friends, their shared memories and laughter interweaving with the soft glow of the setting sun. Together, they reminisce about youthful dreams and cherished memories from years gone by, marveling at how life has brought them to this beautiful moment. The passage of time is bittersweet, but as they share these memories, their laughter and warmth seem to slow time itself. Once home, Aunt Lee unwinds with her favorite TV dramas, her eyes misting as she empathizes with the characters, feeling their sorrows, joys, and triumphs as though they were her own. With each scene, she feels more connected to the world, both near and far. Finally, after freshening up, she reflects on the day's small but meaningful joys as she settles into bed, her heart full and her mind at ease. A satisfied smile crosses her face as she drifts into a peaceful sleep, thankful for yet another day in her fulfilling, happy retirement. The following morning brings a new turn of events. A phone call breaks the serene quiet of dawn. Aunt Lee picks up the receiver, surprised by the voice on the other end, a young man who introduces himself as Xiao Ming, a distant relative she barely recalls. There's something faintly familiar about him, and she listens as he explains he's coming to the city for business. Aunt Lee's heart swells with warmth at the thought of family, and she offers her assistance without hesitation. When he asks if he can stay with her for a few days, she readily agrees, already picturing the preparations she'll make to welcome him. Excitement fills Aunt Lee as she spends the day sprucing up her home. She meticulously cleans each corner, goes to the market to pick up fresh fruits and snacks, and even sets up a cozy guest area. She thinks to herself, family is family, no matter how long it's been. The doorbell rings that afternoon, and there stands Xiao Ming, his face brightened by a hopeful smile. She feels a sense of pride and affection as she welcomes him in. Over tea, they exchange stories. Xiao Ming speaks with youthful enthusiasm about his recent graduation and job hopes, while Aunt Lee shares her life wisdom, hoping to give him the confidence he needs for his journey. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 1 below to let me know that you are still here with me. That evening, they dine together, sharing dreams and life experiences that seem to close the gap between them. Their laughter fills the room, a harmonious blend of young aspirations and old wisdom. Aunt Lee feels so proud, sensing Xiao Ming's potential, and her heart is filled with joy as they bond over stories. But the path of life has surprises in store. Little does Aunt Lee know, this visit will open the door to unforeseen challenges and perhaps life-altering changes. The next morning, Xiao Ming heads out early, brimming with determination. Aunt Lee resumes her day with her friends, though a strange uneasiness lingers in her heart, a premonition she can't shake off. She reassures herself, dismissing it as an overactive imagination. Around noon, Xiao Ming calls with exciting news. His interview went well, and he is hopeful about the future. Aunt Lee feels a rush of relief and joy, her heart swelling with pride. She praises his efforts, reminding him to stay positive and safe. As the day unfolds, the unexpected continues. The doorbell rings, and Aunt Lee hurries to greet Xiao Ming but instead finds a well-dressed stranger standing there. Introducing himself as a manager from a company impressed with Xiao Ming's interview, the man smiles warmly, hinting at potential opportunities for the young man. Aunt Lee's heart races with excitement and pride as she invites the man inside, her thoughts swirling with hope for Xiao Ming's promising future. In her mind, she marvels at the twists life can bring, realizing that sometimes even the smallest connections can lead to the most extraordinary moments. The manager's visit had been a beacon of hope for Aunt Lee, a reassurance that her efforts to support her young relative were finally bearing fruit. Sitting in her cozy living room, the man had spoken warmly of Xiao Ming, praising his potential and ambition. "Xiao Ming is a very promising young man," he said with an encouraging smile. "Our company is eager to bring him on board." Aunt Lee's heart swelled with joy and pride. She could feel her heart fluttering with the excitement of seeing Xiao Ming step closer to his dreams. Helping family had always been a priority for her, and in that moment, she felt as if all her efforts had been worth it. However, just as the man was preparing to leave, Aunt Lee's phone rang, the shrill sound breaking the peaceful silence. With a polite smile, she excused herself and answered, her expression gradually shifting as the voice on the other end relayed unexpected and unsettling news. The manager's face mirrored her shock, and his warm demeanor quickly faded. "I'm sorry," he said, his tone somber and uncertain. "It seems our company has encountered an unforeseen issue. We may not be able to hire Xiao Ming after all. I'll need to look into the matter and get back to you." As the manager left, Aunt Lee's mind raced with questions and worries. What could have happened? Why would the company suddenly change its mind? She fought to push back her anxiety, but as she sat there alone, she knew she had to tell Xiao Ming before he heard it from someone else. Taking a deep breath, she dialed his number, her heart aching at the thought of delivering the disappointing news. When Xiao Ming answered, his voice was hopeful, unaware of the turn of events. Aunt Lee's voice softened as she gently broke the news. "Xiao Ming, I just heard that the company might not be able to offer you the position." On the other end, Xiao Ming fell silent, his initial excitement fading into a tone of defeat. "Aunt, I don't understand. They said the interview went well." Aunt Lee quickly tried to reassure him. "Don't let this discourage you, Xiao Ming. There will be other opportunities. And I believe in you wholeheartedly. Sometimes, these setbacks are just a way for something better to come along." That evening, Xiao Ming returned home, the weight of disappointment visible in his slumped shoulders and downcast expression. Aunt Lee, determined to lift his spirits, prepared a comforting meal, hoping the warmth of his favorite dishes might bring some cheer back to his heart. She set the table with care, each dish a silent encouragement. Yet, as he sat down, Xiao Ming barely touched his food, staring blankly at his plate, the strain of his situation etched deeply on his face. Aunt Lee sat beside him, her heart heavy as she watched him struggle in silence, desperate to find a way to ease his burden. Just then, the doorbell rang, a sound that filled Aunt Lee with a strange mix of hope and apprehension. She hesitated, wondering who could be visiting at this late hour, but she quickly rose to answer the door. Opening it, she found a young woman standing there, her eyes wide and anxious, a glimmer of relief flashing across her face as she saw Aunt Lee. "Is this Xiao Ming's home?" she asked, her voice soft yet urgent. Aunt Lee nodded, sensing there was more to this visit than she could guess, and invited the girl inside. As soon as Xiao Ming looked up and saw the girl, his eyes widened in surprise. The girl's face crumpled as she walked toward him, her eyes filling with tears. "Xiao Ming," she said, her voice breaking, "I heard about the interview. I was so worried about you. I know how hard you've worked, and I just want you to know that I believe in you. You're going to find something even better, I'm sure of it." Xiao Ming, moved by her presence and concern, reached for her hand, finding solace in her touch. Aunt Lee watched the two of them, a glimmer of hope rekindling in her heart, grateful that Xiao Ming had someone who cared so deeply for him in this difficult time. As they all sat down together, Aunt Lee poured the girl a glass of water, encouraging her to share their story. The young woman explained that she and Xiao Ming were classmates at university and had shared a close bond throughout their studies. She had quietly admired his ambition and kindness, but neither had ever spoken of their feelings. Upon hearing that he'd be coming to the city for a job, she had followed, hoping to surprise him with her support and share in his success. Aunt Lee listened intently, her heart warming as she realized how much the girl cared for her nephew. Tears filled Aunt Lee's eyes as she spoke words of encouragement. "Both of you have so much ahead of you," she said softly, her voice rich with emotion. "Don't let one setback make you lose hope. With love and support, you'll find a way forward, no matter how hard things may seem." Her words seemed to revive a spark of determination in both Xiao Ming and the girl, who exchanged hopeful glances. However, life often has a way of testing even the strongest bonds. In the days that followed, Xiao Ming attended more interviews, but each attempt ended in rejection, chipping away at his self-confidence. Aunt Lee noticed the light in his eyes dimming, the once determined young man now retreating into himself, his doubts and fears overwhelming him. She tried everything she could to lift his spirits, cooking his favorite dishes, inviting him to join her for walks, sharing stories from her struggles in life, but her efforts seemed to fall short. Then, one evening, as Aunt Lee sat watching her favorite TV drama, the doorbell rang again, this time with an intensity that sent a chill down her spine. Startled, she opened the door to find a group of men standing outside, their expressions stern and unforgiving. The leader stepped forward, his voice hard and accusatory. "You're Xiao Ming's relative, aren't you?" he demanded. "He owes us money, and we've come to collect." Aunt Lee's heart sank, her mind racing as she struggled to make sense of what they were saying. She shook her head, trying to keep her voice steady. "I don't know anything about Xiao Ming owing money. You must have the wrong person," she said, her tone a mixture of fear and confusion. But the men were unmoved, pushing past her, their eyes scanning the room as they called out Xiao Ming's name, demanding he come forward. Desperately, Aunt Lee tried to block their path, her small frame bracing against the door as she pleaded with them to leave. "Please, you're scaring me. I'm telling you, I don't know anything about this." Her voice trembled with fear, her hands shaking as she clung to the doorframe, determined to protect her home and her nephew. But her words fell on deaf ears, the men advancing with a cold, ruthless intent. At that very moment, Xiao Ming returned home, his face paling as he took in the tense scene unfolding before him. The men immediately surrounded him, their voices sharp and demanding. "You owe us money, Xiao Ming, and we're not leaving until you pay us back," they threatened, their tone leaving no room for negotiation. Xiao Ming, cornered and overwhelmed, stammered, I don't have the money right now. Please, just give me a few more days to gather what I owe." But the men were unyielding, their expressions darkening as they moved closer, their voices filled with menace. Aunt Lee watched helplessly, her heart pounding with fear and despair as she saw her nephew at the mercy of these relentless strangers. She could barely recognize the Xiao Ming she knew. Gone was the bright, hopeful young man she had welcomed into her home. Now, he seemed lost, burdened by secrets and struggles that had remained hidden until now. A wave of sorrow and helplessness washed over her as she wondered how things had spiraled so quickly and so painfully. Her mind raced, desperate to find a way to shield him, yet unable to fathom a solution that could ease the storm raging around them. As the door closes behind Zhang Chong, Aunt Li finally breathes a sigh of relief, though a heavy tension lingers in the air. The unsettling questions and invasive curiosity have left her feeling vulnerable, an uncomfortable prickling sensation that something isn't right. Her mind races, replaying the stranger's pointed questions, each one more intrusive than the last. She wonders if she has been too trusting by allowing Xiao Ming, and now his friend, into her life and home so freely. Although the debt collectors had left for the time being, the shadow of that incident still hovers, and now Zhang Chong's visit only heightens her fears. She looks at Xiao Ming, who stands quietly, perhaps sensing her unease, but he says nothing. Aunt Li finally speaks, her voice soft but carrying a firmness that surprises even her. "Xiao Ming, who exactly is this friend of yours?" she asks, her tone layered with concern. Xiao Ming looks away, avoiding her gaze, and mumbles, "He's just a friend from school, Aunt. He wanted to meet you since he heard I was staying here." Aunt Li watches him, feeling an ache in her heart as doubt begins to creep in. She remembers the warm, trusting young man she welcomed just days ago, and now she sees a stranger, a young man who may be carrying secrets and troubles far heavier than she'd ever imagined. That night, Aunt Li finds herself lying awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with worry. She can't shake the memory of Zhang Chong's gaze, those sly eyes roaming her home as if taking inventory. She remembers his questions, not just about her but about her children, her finances, her property, all asked with a superficial charm that felt calculated. She wonders if Zhang Chong has ulterior motives, and even more, she wonders if Xiao Ming is aware of them. The thought of someone taking advantage of her kindness leaves her feeling uneasy, her trust chipped away piece by piece. Days pass, and Aunt Li tries to regain some sense of normalcy. She goes about her usual activities, visiting the senior activity center, spending time with friends, and caring for her beloved plants. But the worry never really leaves her heart, lingering like a dark cloud over her otherwise peaceful life. She finds herself second-guessing her decision to let Xiao Ming stay, questioning if her sense of family loyalty has put her at risk. Then one evening, Xiao Ming approaches her with a hesitance she hasn't seen before. "Aunt," he begins, his voice uncertain, "I'm sorry about everything. I didn't mean for any trouble to come your way. Zhang Chong is, well, he has some financial issues of his own. I didn't realize he'd act like that in front of you." Aunt Li listens, feeling a pang of sympathy mixed with frustration. She sighs, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Xiao Ming, I'm here to help you, but I need you to be honest with me. I need to know what's going on." Her voice wavers, a mixture of love and worry for the young man she wanted to protect. Xiao Ming nods, and after a long silence, he begins to share his struggles. He confesses that, while he did come to the city for a job, he had also accumulated debts from trying to support his family and friends, including Zhang Chong, during hard times. He admits that he didn't want to burden her with his troubles and had hoped to resolve things on his own. "I didn't mean for any of this to affect you, Aunt. I thought I could handle it. But things spiraled out of control." Xiao Ming's voice is heavy with regret, and Aunt Li sees the toll it's taken on him. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 2 below to let me know that you are still here with me. Aunt Li listens, her heart breaking a little with each word. She realizes now that Xiao Ming is caught in a web far beyond his control, a tangled mix of loyalty, debt, and misplaced trust. She thinks back to her own life, the struggle she has faced, and the hard lessons she learned about whom to trust and how to protect oneself. Part of her wants to scold him, to shake him out of his naivety, but she knows that he has already learned these lessons the hard way. Instead, she takes a deep breath, her mind racing as she searches for a way to help him without jeopardizing her safety. After a long, contemplative silence, Aunt Lee finally speaks, her voice soft but steady. "Xiao Ming, you have to understand that while family and friends are important, you cannot allow them to drag you down. You're young, and you have a chance to rebuild, but you need to be cautious. Trust is a precious thing, and it shouldn't be given lightly." She sees his shoulders slump, his face clouded with guilt and frustration, but she presses on, feeling it's her responsibility to share this wisdom. "I will help you this time, but there must be boundaries. I cannot open my home to strangers who mean harm, nor can I bear the weight of your debts. You must take responsibility and make decisions that protect you and those who care about you." Xiao Ming nods, his face a mixture of relief and resignation. Aunt Lee's words seem to reach him, sinking in as he contemplates his next steps. She can see the flicker of resolve returning to his eyes, and for the first time in days, she feels a glimmer of hope. Over the following weeks, Xiao Ming begins to take charge of his situation. He contacts his debtors, negotiating new terms and showing a determination that Aunt Lee hadn't seen before. He distances himself from Zhang Chong, realizing that his so-called friend may not have his best interests at heart. Aunt Lee watches with a mix of pride and apprehension, her heart silently cheering him on while bracing for any further challenges that might arise. One evening, Xiao Ming comes home, a look of quiet pride on his face. "Aunt," he says, "I've found a job. It's not exactly what I hoped for, but it's a start. And I've managed to work out a payment plan for my debts." Aunt Lee's face lights up, and she reaches out, pulling him into a hug. Her heart swells with relief, gratitude, and love, feeling as if a heavy weight has finally lifted. She realizes that while family can sometimes bring unexpected burdens, it can also lead to unexpected blessings. Xiao Ming's journey has tested her patience, trust, and compassion, but in the end, it has also strengthened the bond between them. As they sit together in the quiet of her living room, Aunt Lee feels a deep sense of peace. She has learned that helping others requires wisdom as much as kindness, and she feels she has passed that lesson on to Xiao Ming. Their paths may still be filled with challenges, but for now, they have each other, and that is enough. Seeing Aunt Lee's troubled expression, Xiao Ming feels a pang of guilt. He lowers his head, his voice filled with regret as he apologizes. "Aunt, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize Zhang Chong would act like this. He just talks too much and doesn't know when to stop. Please don't take it to heart." Aunt Lee lets out a deep sigh, her eyes clouded with disappointment. "Xiao Ming," she begins gently but firmly, "I welcomed you here because you're family, and I want to support you. But bringing people like Zhang Chong into my home, it makes everyone uncomfortable. In the future, please be mindful of the people you choose to bring into your life and this home." Xiao Ming nods, his expression earnest, and reassures her, "I understand, Aunt. I'll be more careful. I won't bring people like him here again." But despite his words, Aunt Lee can't shake the feeling of unease that lingers after Zhang Chong's visit. The man's intrusive questions, the way he examined her home as though sizing up her belongings, and his slick manner had unsettled her deeply. She hoped her warning to Xiao Ming would be enough to keep such troubles at bay, but unfortunately, that peace would be short-lived. A few days later, Aunt Lee receives a call from a number she doesn't recognize. She answers, and the voice on the other end introduces himself in a too friendly tone. "Hello, is this Aunt Lee? I'm a friend of Zhang Chong. He mentioned how well off you are and thought you might be able to lend me a bit of money. It's just a temporary thing, you know." Aunt Lee feels a surge of anger bubbles up within her. She never expected Zhang Chong would go so far, not only digging into her personal affairs but also spreading rumors about her finances to others and attempting to exploit her generosity. Her voice is firm and icy as she replies, "I don't know who you are, and I certainly won't lend money to strangers. As for Zhang Chong, he and I have no business together." Do not call me again." She hangs up, her hands trembling slightly from the shock and anger. Aunt Lee feels violated, as though the safety and comfort of her home have been invaded. Her heart is heavy with regret. In hindsight, she wonders if she should have been more guarded, not just with Zhang Chong but perhaps even with Xiao Ming. This incident pushes Aunt Lee to a difficult decision. She realizes she must address the situation directly with Xiao Ming if she hopes to regain peace and prevent any future issues. She calls him into the living room and looks at him with a seriousness he hasn't seen before. "Xiao Ming," she begins, her tone unwavering. "Your friend Zhang Chong is not someone you should be associating with. He's prying into my affairs, spreading rumors about me, and even asking others to borrow money on my behalf. I don't want him involved in our lives in any way, and I need you to understand how serious this is." Xiao Ming's face turns red with embarrassment and anger. He never thought Zhang Chong would cross such boundaries, and he feels responsible for bringing such trouble to his aunt's door. "Aunt, I didn't know he would stoop to this level. I thought he was just a little talkative. I'm sorry. I won't see him anymore," he promises, his voice sincere. Aunt Lee softens, sensing his remorse, but she knows this conversation is necessary for him to learn. "Xiao Ming," she says gently, "I understand you're new to the world outside of school. You're kind-hearted and perhaps a bit naive, which is why you need to be cautious about whom you trust. Not everyone who seems friendly has good intentions. Some people are only out for themselves, and they'll take advantage of anyone willing to let them." Xiao Ming listens carefully, absorbing his aunt's words, feeling the weight of her wisdom. He recognizes now the importance of her advice and the gravity of the situation he has unintentionally created. "I'm sorry for everything, Aunt. I realize now how careless I've been. You opened your home to me, and I brought in someone who didn't respect you. I won't make that mistake again," he says, a determined look in his eyes. Aunt Lee smiles gently, relieved to see his resolve. "That's all I ask, Xiao Ming. Be careful, especially in matters involving home and family. Protecting these things requires a lot more than just good intentions." From that moment on, Xiao Ming takes her advice to heart. He immediately cuts ties with Zhang Chong, understanding that this so-called friend has little regard for boundaries or respect. With his newfound awareness, he devotes himself even more to his job search, hoping to show Aunt Lee that he is worthy of her support and trust. Aunt Lee, too, becomes more cautious, aware now of how easily trust can be misused and how important it is to protect her space and her peace. In the weeks that follow, Xiao Ming's efforts finally begin to pay off. He lands a job that, though modest, provides him with a start to his new life. He approaches Aunt Lee with the good news, his face beaming with pride. "Aunt, I've got a job," he announces, and Aunt Lee feels her heart swell with happiness and relief. She congratulates him warmly, her smile reflecting the joy she feels for him. Though the journey has been challenging, Aunt Lee sees Xiao Ming's growth, his new understanding of the world, and the importance of surrounding oneself with good, trustworthy people. Their bond deepens as they share this new chapter, both grateful for the lessons learned and the strength gained. Aunt Lee reflects on the trials they've faced together and feels proud of her nephew, who has come to understand the value of caution, respect, and hard work. She knows now that, while family can sometimes bring unforeseen challenges, it can also teach invaluable lessons. Xiao Ming's journey has brought both hardship and healing, and Aunt Lee feels that in the end, they have come out stronger, with a deeper appreciation for each other and the sanctuary of home. Just as Aunt Lee thought her troubles with Zhang Chong and the debt collectors were behind her, they began to resurface, bringing an unsettling shadow back into her life. Days after Zhang Chong's last attempt at pushing his so-called health supplements on her, Aunt Lee tried to let her guard down, hoping the visit was simply an unfortunate memory that would soon fade. But one morning, as she was tidying up, the doorbell rang again. She opened it, and her heart sank upon seeing Zhang Chong standing there, holding a few small gift boxes and grinning in a way that made her skin crawl. "Good morning, Aunt Lee. I just wanted to bring you a little something," he said, thrusting the boxes into her hands with exaggerated politeness. Aunt Lee felt trapped, her discomfort mounting as she forced a smile, reluctant to make a scene at her doorstep. "That's very kind of you," she replied stiffly, stepping aside to let him in. The thought of confronting him directly crossed her mind, but she held back, hoping she could quickly see him off and avoid any confrontation. She invited him to sit down, offering him a glass of water to keep things civil, though she could hardly bear his presence. After a few minutes of small talk that felt strained and artificial, Zhang Chang's true purpose for the visit came to light. Reaching into his bag, he pulled out several bottles of health supplements, placing them on the table as if displaying valuable treasures. "Aunt Lee, these supplements are wonderful. They're all natural and designed to keep you strong, ward off illness, and add years to your life. I'm sharing them with you out of respect for your health," he said, his tone dripping with salesmanship. Aunt Lee felt her irritation rising but managed a polite decline. "Thank you, Zhang Chang, but I'm quite healthy as I am. I don't need such supplements." Zhang Chang didn't seem to take the hint. He slid the bottles closer to her, his voice becoming more insistent. "Aunt, don't be so quick to dismiss them. These are very affordable and are well worth the investment in your health. Look at them, they're practically a steal." His words grated on her nerves, and Aunt Lee struggled to keep her composure. "I don't need them," she repeated, her voice now firmer. "I'm not in the market for supplements, and I don't believe they work the way you're describing." Still, Zhang Chang persisted, dropping the price even lower in a final attempt to coax her into buying. "I can give you a special discount," he said smoothly. Aunt Lee's patience finally snapped. Rising to her feet, she fixed him with a steely glare. "Enough. I said no, and I mean it. You have no right to come here pushing things I don't want or need. Please leave," she stated firmly, making it clear that she would not tolerate any more of his manipulative tactics. Zhang Chang, sensing her anger, managed an awkward laugh, feigning innocence. "Aunt, don't be upset. I only have your well-being in mind," he muttered before hurriedly making his exit. As the door closed behind him, Aunt Lee sank into the sofa, feeling a heavy sense of relief mixed with dread. She thought back to his sly smile, the way he pried into her life and the persistence with which he tried to sell her those supplements. It was clear to her now that Zhang Chang was not someone to trust, and the encounter left her worried that this might not be the last she would see of him. Determined to protect herself, Aunt Lee decided it was best to alert her neighbors about Zhang Chang's schemes, hoping that sharing her experiences might prevent them from being targeted. One afternoon, while preparing dinner, her neighbor Aunt Wang dropped by, her face lined with worry. "Li Mei," she began cautiously, "I wanted to tell you something odd. There's been a stranger asking about you around the neighborhood. He didn't seem trustworthy, asking questions about your family, whether you live alone. I didn't like it one bit, so I thought you should know." Aunt Lee felt a chill run through her at Aunt Wang's words. The memory of Zhang Chang's intrusiveness flashed through her mind, and a knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach. Yet she tried to brush it off, forcing herself to sound calm. "Thank you for letting me know, Wang Jie. Perhaps he was mistaken, or it's just a misunderstanding," she replied, though the unease lingered in her heart. She hoped it was nothing, but Aunt Wang's warning was impossible to ignore. As the days passed, Aunt Lee found herself growing increasingly wary, always glancing over her shoulder whenever she went out, and making sure her doors were locked tight at night. She couldn't shake the feeling that Zhang Chang, or someone connected to him, might try to intrude into her life again. Reflecting on the recent string of events, she became painfully aware of how easily trust could be exploited and how vulnerable it had made her feel. One evening, as she sat quietly with her thoughts, Aunt Lee resolved to take matters into her own hands. She decided to limit her interactions with people she wasn't close to and to keep her personal affairs private. She even took steps to inform her family, letting them know about Zhang Chang and his disturbing behavior, in case he tried reaching out to them or spreading rumors. Aunt Lee realized that protecting her peace would require vigilance and boundaries, and she vowed to be more guarded in the future, especially when it came to those she allowed into her home. A few days later, Aunt Wong visited again, bringing news that only intensified Aunt Lee's resolve. "Li Mei," she said in a hushed tone, "I saw that man, Zhang Chong, wasn't it? Around here again, talking to some younger people in the neighborhood. I overheard him mention something about you, though I didn't catch all of it." Aunt Lee felt her heart race with renewed anxiety. She knew now that her decision to warn her neighbors and be cautious was the right one, but it still left her unsettled to know he was still lurking around. In the following weeks, Aunt Lee maintained a firm stance, making sure to distance herself from anyone connected to Zhang Chong and reinforcing her trust in those who truly cared for her. She found herself leaning on her closest friends, those like Aunt Wong, who were there not only to support her but to stand by her as she reclaimed her peace. Though the journey had been fraught with unexpected challenges and moments of fear, Aunt Lee felt a renewed sense of resilience. She had learned that kindness had to be balanced with caution and that sometimes protecting oneself meant drawing boundaries even with family. In time, Aunt Lee's life began to return to a sense of normalcy. She continued her days, surrounded by neighbors who had shown her loyalty and respect. Each day, as she tended to her flowers or joined her friends for a game of chess, Aunt Lee felt a deep gratitude for the peace she had fought to regain. She understood now the delicate balance between openness and caution, between kindness and the need to protect her sanctuary. Though Zhang Chong's shadow had darkened her home briefly, Aunt Lee had emerged stronger, her spirit unbroken and her wisdom deepened by the experience. The man scoffs, his harsh laughter filling the quiet house as he sneers, "Help? I don't need your pity, old woman. I just need your money." But Aunt Lee doesn't let his words deter her. She clings to her calm facade, slowly inching backward toward the emergency alarm button she had installed months earlier, concealed behind a decorative vase on a low shelf near the wall. As she subtly moves closer, she keeps talking, hoping to buy herself precious seconds. "Listen, young man," she says in a soothing voice, though her heart pounds with terror, "I may not have much, but you don't want to do something you'll regret. There are other ways to solve problems. Better ways." Her words seem to confuse him, and for a brief moment, he pauses, his grip on the knife loosening slightly as he stares at her with an expression that almost betrays a hint of doubt. Seizing the opportunity, Aunt Lee's hand edges behind the vase, feeling for the button with trembling fingers. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment 3 below to let me know that you are still here with me. As her fingers finally find the button, she presses it with a slight, concealed movement. The alarm is silent, but she knows it has sent an alert to the local security office, thanks to the discreet system her family had installed in case of emergencies. Now, she only needs to stall for time until help arrives. She glances nervously at the man, who has now turned his focus back to her, his eyes hardening as he realizes she isn't panicking like he expected. "What's with all this talk?" he snaps, frustration boiling over. "If you think stalling will help, you're wrong. Give me whatever valuables you have now." His patience is wearing thin, and Aunt Lee knows she needs to keep him distracted, to prevent him from becoming violent before help arrives. Thinking quickly, she nods, trying to appear cooperative. All right, she says, raising her hands slightly to show she isn't resisting. "I have a few things, not much, but I'll get them for you." She takes slow, careful steps toward a drawer in the living room where she keeps some old jewelry, intentionally moving at a snail's pace to stall for time. "This necklace here belonged to my mother. It's very old, but it has sentimental value," she begins, pulling out a small box with shaky hands. The man grabs the box impatiently, muttering as he inspects the modest pieces of jewelry. He frowns, disappointed with the lack of real wealth. "Is this all? Are you playing games with me?" he demands, his tone rising. Aunt Lee shakes her head vigorously, her voice steady as she says, "I swear, it's all I have here. I'm just a retired woman. There's no hidden fortune in this house." Outside, distant sounds begin to drift in, the faint hum of voices, the occasional shout. Aunt Lee dares to hope that the security team or even neighbors may have heard something amiss. But the man remains focused on her, unaware of the noise. He paces the room, still casting angry glances at her as he searches for any hint of hidden wealth. In a last-ditch effort, Aunt Lee tries to appeal to his better nature. "Young man, I don't know what troubles brought you here, but this path will only lead to more suffering. Life is difficult, yes, but there are ways to get help without bringing harm to others." Her voice is calm yet pleading, filled with both fear and compassion. The man pauses, seemingly taken aback by her words, his face softening for a brief moment. But as he opens his mouth to speak, the sudden sound of a firm knock on the door reverberates through the room, followed by a voice. "This is security. Ma'am, is everything all right?" The man's face drains of color as he realizes he's been cornered. Desperation overtakes him, and he takes a quick step toward Aunt Lee, brandishing the knife again. "What did you do?" he hisses, his voice panicked and furious. Aunt Lee stands her ground, her voice trembling but defiant. "They're here because you don't belong here," she says, hoping to instill some fear or doubt in him. "You need to leave now if you want any chance of getting away." The security guard knocks again, louder this time. "Ma'am, please respond. We're coming in if we don't hear from you." The man looks around wildly, his once menacing confidence now faltering. He seems to weigh his options, torn between trying to silence Aunt Lee and escaping while he still has a chance. Finally, with a frustrated curse, he storms toward the door, clutching the few pieces of jewelry he'd taken in haste. Aunt Lee backs away, her heart racing as she watches him fumble with the lock, his panic growing as he realizes he's trapped. Just as he manages to open the door a crack, the security team bursts in, overpowering him and pinning him to the ground within moments. Aunt Lee collapses onto the sofa, overwhelmed by relief, her body trembling with the release of all the tension and fear she had been holding back. One of the security officers rushes to her side, gently asking if she's okay. Aunt Lee nods, though her voice shakes as she speaks. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't arrived." The officer reassures her, patting her hand. "You were very brave, ma'am. The alarm system you activated was crucial in helping us get here in time." As the man is taken away in handcuffs, Aunt Lee watches him go, her heart filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. She wonders what could drive someone to such desperation, to the point where they would harm others. Exhausted, she reflects on how close she came to danger, and the weight of her decision settles heavily on her shoulders. Over the next few days, Aunt Lee receives visits from concerned neighbors and friends, each one expressing relief and gratitude that she is safe. Aunt Wong, particularly, insists on helping her secure the house further, suggesting new locks and even a camera at the entrance for added security. "We're all here for you, Li Mei," Aunt Wong says, holding her hand warmly. Aunt Lee, touched by their kindness, finally feels a sense of peace returning to her home. She realizes that this experience has taught her an invaluable lesson about vigilance and boundaries. She resolves to be cautious, not only with those she allows into her home but also with whom she places her trust. Aunt Lee's sanctuary is sacred to her, a space she now guards with newfound wisdom and strength. The fear and anxiety she once felt have transformed into a quiet determination to protect herself and her peace, knowing that while kindness is a beautiful gift, it must be balanced with careful discernment. As the man stood over her, his expression hardened and his voice cold, Aunt Lee's resolve didn't waver. She kept her tone calm, her words deliberate. "Young man," she said softly, "you're still so young. Don't throw your life away with actions you'll regret. If you have a family, think about how heartbroken they'd be to see you doing this." For a brief moment, she saw something flicker in his eyes, an emotion that almost looked like hesitation. But his face quickly hardened again. "I don't have a family," he sneered, dismissing her attempts at reasoning. "And I don't need anyone's sympathy. Stop stalling and give me the money, or you'll regret it." Aunt Lee could sense the danger escalating, but she knew that she needed to remain calm and try to find a way out. She carefully moved back, inching toward the emergency alarm button hidden behind a nearby cabinet. But the man, noticing her subtle movements, yelled, "What are you doing? Don't move." Aunt Lee froze, her heart pounding. She took a deep breath, quickly adjusting her expression to look frightened. "I'm not moving," she said, keeping her voice steady. "There's no need to get angry. Let's just talk this through calmly." She continued speaking, trying to buy herself even a few more seconds, then suddenly turned and lunged for the alarm button. She pressed it firmly, sending an alert out to the local security and the police. Realizing what she had done, the man's face contorted with rage. He rushed toward her, but Aunt Lee held her ground, hoping help would arrive quickly. The man looked around wildly, his initial aggression giving way to panic as he realized he was now trapped. He moved to flee, but just as he turned toward the door, the police arrived, storming in and overpowering him. The officers quickly subdued him, placing him in handcuffs as Aunt Lee stood back, watching the scene with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. As the man was led away, Aunt Lee felt her knees weaken, the tension of the past minutes finally catching up to her. One of the officers approached her, speaking softly. "Ma'am, are you all right? You did well to remain calm." Aunt Lee nodded, though her hands trembled as she clutched her sweater. "Thank you," she replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come in time." In the days that followed, Aunt Lee found herself haunted by the experience. The image of the man's threatening face and the glint of the knife in his hand replayed in her mind, filling her with anxiety. She was shaken, realizing just how close she had come to a truly dangerous situation. The memory of pressing the alarm button became a reminder of how critical it was to remain vigilant and prepared for anything. She knew that had she not kept her wits about her, the outcome could have been drastically different. When Xiao Ming learned about the incident, he was horrified and deeply regretful. Rushing to her side, he promised to protect her and ensure her safety from now on. He took it upon himself to learn more about home security and safety precautions, hoping to offer Aunt Lee some peace of mind. The two of them began discussing ways to improve her home security, including additional locks and even a surveillance camera. Xiao Ming's commitment comforted Aunt Lee, who was grateful to have someone by her side during such a vulnerable time. But Aunt Lee couldn't let this incident go unshared. She felt a responsibility to warn her community, hoping to protect others from a similar ordeal. Gathering her courage, she decided to share her story with her neighbors. On a clear afternoon, she made her way to the community square, where people often gathered to chat and relax. Her usually bright and cheerful demeanor was now solemn as she recounted her harrowing experience, her voice trembling with emotion. "Friends," she began, "I don't want any of you to go through what I did. Be careful. These types of people should never be allowed into your home." The crowd gathered around her, listening with growing shock and concern. She held back tears as she warned them. First, avoid anyone who pries into your personal life. People who seem overly interested in your family, your finances, or anything private. They may seem friendly, but their intentions could be harmful. Second, beware of those who pretend to be maintenance workers or use other excuses to gain entry. These people look official, but they may have malicious plans. "I let one in out of kindness, and I nearly paid for it with my life." Her words resonated deeply with the neighbors, who were visibly moved and disturbed. Aunt Wang, standing nearby, clasped Aunt Lee's hands tightly, her eyes filled with sympathy and anger. "Li Mei, you've gone through so much. Don't worry, we'll all be careful from now on," Aunt Wang promised, squeezing her hands. Uncle Zhang chimed in, his face grim with anger. "People like that are predators. We need to stay vigilant to keep ourselves and each other safe." Aunt Lee's story spread through the community quickly, stirring everyone's awareness. Her experience became a powerful reminder of the importance of caution, especially for elderly residents who might be more vulnerable. From that day forward, The entire community took extra measures to stay safe. Aunt Lee herself became more guarded, double-checking her locks before leaving the house, and making sure to look through the peephole before opening the door to any visitor. If she didn't recognize someone, she politely but firmly refused to let them in, even going as far as notifying property management if anything seemed suspicious. The terrifying incident left its mark, but it also strengthened Aunt Lee's resolve. She shared her experience with her friends during their regular gatherings, where they often reminded each other of safety precautions and discussed ways to protect themselves. "We may be getting older," Aunt Lee told her friends during one of their square dancing sessions, "but that only means we have to be wiser and more cautious. We need to protect ourselves and be prepared for anything." Her friends nodded, each one reflecting on their vulnerability. Aunt Lee's words became a rallying cry for the group, instilling a sense of unity and resilience among them. Over time, Aunt Lee felt her anxiety slowly ease, replaced by a newfound determination. She knew she couldn't change the past, but she could take steps to protect her future. Through her story, she hoped to empower others to do the same, turning her experience into a lasting reminder of the strength that comes from staying vigilant and supporting one another. Aunt Lee's experience becomes a transformative journey, not just for herself but for her entire community. Determined to turn her traumatic encounter into something meaningful, she actively participates in the community's safety initiatives. She collaborates closely with the property management to design safety tips and posters, placing them in visible areas around the neighborhood. With her eye for detail and personal insight, she includes practical reminders like always verify a visitor's identity before letting them in, and keep emergency contacts accessible. Aunt Lee also hands out safety pamphlets she helped create, speaking to neighbors one-on-one to emphasize the importance of staying alert and cautious. "I just hope my efforts help others understand how important it is to take safety seriously," she tells her friends. "If my experience can prevent someone else from facing the same fear, then it has served a purpose." Her genuine dedication touches the community, inspiring many to adopt similar precautions. Neighbors take action, installing stronger locks on their doors and setting up surveillance cameras to deter potential threats. Some even organize volunteer patrol groups, regularly walking around the neighborhood to ensure safety. Under Aunt Lee's influence, the community's sense of security blossoms, and residents begin to feel an ease that hadn't been present before. Despite these positive changes, Aunt Lee can't entirely erase the scar left by the traumatic event. The image of the man's menacing gaze and the knife he wielded haunts her, resurfacing in the quiet hours of the night. She often wakes up from unsettling nightmares, her heart racing, unable to shake the fear even after opening her eyes. Each time she recalls the incident, her body reacts, shivering uncontrollably. She realizes that the experience hasn't only been physically alarming but has left deep psychological wounds. To confront these lingering fears, Aunt Lee seeks guidance from a psychologist. The therapist, warm and patient, listens to Aunt Lee's story and acknowledges her bravery. "The fear you feel is natural and understandable. It's important to face it head-on rather than avoiding it," the psychologist explains. By using techniques like deep breathing, meditation, and physical activity, you can manage the anxiety when it arises. And don't hesitate to lean on your loved ones. Share your feelings. They can offer comfort and a sense of solidarity. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons useful, please comment below to let me know that you are still here with me. Aunt Lee takes these words to heart and begins a steady routine to help manage her anxiety. She dedicates a few minutes each morning to deep breathing exercises, inhaling and exhaling slowly to calm her mind. She finds meditation helpful, too, learning to focus on calming thoughts whenever her mind drifts to memories of that frightening night. As part of her journey, Aunt Lee also begins to exercise more regularly. Each morning, she takes a walk around the neighborhood, greeting her neighbors and feeling reassured by the familiar sights. Her weekly dance sessions with her old friends become therapeutic as well, allowing her to release stress through joyful movement and laughter. Perhaps most helpful, Aunt Lee starts to open up to her family and close friends. She shares her thoughts, her fears, and the nightmares that haunt her, and in return, they offer her comfort and encouragement. Her friends, who initially sympathized from afar, now stand closer, understanding her pain on a deeper level. They assure her that they'll always be there, that she's never alone. Her family visits often, checking in on her well-being and helping reinforce the safety measures around her home. With time, Aunt Lee begins to feel her strength return. Her mind feels clearer, and she starts sleeping through the night again, untroubled by nightmares. Slowly, she reclaims her peace and joy, cherishing the simple pleasures of her days, chatting with friends, tending to her plants, and joining her neighbors for lively square dances in the evenings. Though she's regained a sense of normalcy, Aunt Lee never forgets the invaluable lesson from that frightening night. She understands that personal safety is a precious responsibility, one that requires constant vigilance and awareness. Now, she moves through life with a careful balance of kindness and caution. She continues to share her story and safety tips with anyone willing to listen, hoping her experience might remind others to protect themselves and their loved ones. Aunt Lee knows that life is unpredictable, but she also knows that preparation and awareness are her best defenses. In her heart, she carries both the resilience to enjoy her life fully and the wisdom to guard it with care, grateful for the strength she's found in facing her fears. As we conclude Aunt Lee's powerful story, we hope her journey has left a lasting impression. From her courage in the face of danger to her resilience in healing, Aunt Lee reminds us of the importance of vigilance, safety, and finding strength in community support. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What's one lesson you've learned from her experience? And how will you bring it into practice in your own life? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring stories and valuable lessons. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.